everybody. I'm Jeff Apodaca.
Eric Strauss.
And welcome to another edition of Let's Meet in the Middle.
It's we're still here.
Well,
and
you know,
we still love each other.
And
we still love each other.
Well,
at least there's a lot.
I don't really
this
listen
side.
to you. I don't really listen to you. But it's this week. As you know, I've been driving around the state talking to farmers for my new company. But I think if everybody realizes that Eric and I have this ongoing debate about red or green chili or Christmas, and there you go right there. I was driving the other day and I got a burrito. Yeah. I said, okay, let me try this red and green Christmas thing. And I got to be very frank and honest with you.
It's good.
It was horrible.
Come on.
It was horrible. I'm telling you right
delicious.
now. I was telling you right now.
Then, okay, look, I can't be responsible for the type of red chili you got, but
No, it was good red chili and it was bad red. I mean, it's good red chili and good green chili, but mixing it together, I just had this weird taste.
No,
and then
come on.
let me just and then I go to this commercial real estate party the other day, and there's a company there, and I love their logo, so I had to bring you the logo to show you.
Red or green.
Red or green. And I know it's an inspection company, but it's red or green. That's how New Mexicos eat their green chili. Red or green. It's even in the logo.
Just because
it's even
it's
in the brand.
A company
it's even the
name
of a company.
Okay.
So there you go.
So deprive yourself of deliciousness if you want, but I'm not going to jump into that bandwagon. Anytime you can try both, I think is you could keep it separate. I guarantee when you ate it, it was half red and half green, or did they mix it together?
No, it was one side was green, one side was red, and then when I got to the middle, it was just a weird tasting thing, and the aftertaste wasn't comfortable.
So you're the clown when you eat a Tootsie Roll, Tootsie Pop, you don't get to the Tootsie Roll.
I want you to know, no, I do three and then I want you to know. I remember that commercial.
You still have to.
I just want you to know, I tried it. You say I don't try things. I tried it, didn't like it. I'm a New Mexican. I'll eat green.
Yeah, but in a burrito.
Okay, what else is going on?
Generally, I do a green chili burrito. I wanted to talk about 18 people sent back to jail for the.
I saw that. I'm glad you brought that up because I was
community custody program. And what's funny though is, I don't understand a community custody program in general. So you can pay $30, and they come to your whatever home you're going to be living in. They do a little inspection, and you get to be there until jail or whatever hearing or whatever.
I think it goes back to our conversation last week. Last week's show was about crime and how it's affecting the economy, and it goes. You and I disagreed with this. It goes when you look at the gentleman that they have highlighted in the story. Again, we're looking at non-violent criminal acts.
So I'm going to tell you right now.
I think this is a lot better program.
I must have asked.
This is a lot better program than having somebody in a private prison.
I speak to probably, at any one point, 10,000, 15,000 people in one segment of my show.
Come on, it's not that much.
Oh, it is that much. It can even be higher.
I'm giving you a hard time.
So, and I asked
them. Yes, we know you're the number one rated radio guy on TV.
number one on the weekends. I asked very simply, who thinks any crime is nonviolent? You know what I got? I got one answer from a lady that if you shoplift in somebody's store, that's not violent. But everybody else kind of agreed with me and said every crime is violent because if someone breaks in your home, steals your stuff.
We're going to do a whole show on that.
It's a violent. Every crime is violent. Every crime, when you're choosing to break the law, you're setting yourself up for violence.
What we talked about last week they're drug addicts, and so we're better off.
Drug addicts that steal and break into homes, and the one guy they gave for the example in the paper was larceny. Larceny and possession.
And was a drug addict.
Well, and here's what
he
did.
went to rehab, and now he's clean, and now he's doing good work out there.
He was speeding.
No, that was because that's why he went back in the program.
Okay.
All right.
Blew out his tires.
Move on. I talked about it last week. I know, but that was a week. I talked about it last week.
Violent. Why do they need?
And we actually have the executive director of New Mexico Oil and Gas. Today we're talking about energy in New Mexico.
Yes.
And I love to talk to my progressive friends because they're always talking about how we got to stop fracking and we got to shut down oil and gas. And you saw the article last week. $7.8 billion. Billion. See, this is something you and I could agree on this one. $7.8 billion to our economy, and my friends want to shut it down. I don't get this. So I'm sure Ryan Flynn's going to be here. We're going to talk about that and renewables, and I'm sure we'll.
I'm sure it's a great idea to say let's walk away from $7.8 billion because legalized marijuana will fill those coffers.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. But anyway, today, don't forget we're Facebook Live today. You can find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about energy and oil and gas and renewables. Yep. So let's get going.
Let's meet in the middle.
In a time of a divided America, Two people from different points of view sit down to talk about the problems, to talk about ideas, to talk about life, and to find common ground. It is now time for Let's Meet in the Middle with your hosts Eric Strauss and Jeff Apodaca.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. We've been talking about oil and gas and energy. Joining us now is Ryan Flynn, Executive Director of New Mexico Oil and Gas. Ryan, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Ren Flynn, or is it Ryan Flynn?
Ryan Flynn.
I knew it was Ryan
Where do you
Flynn.
get- where do you get
because
Ren
Jeff
from?
Apodaca doesn't know how to spell, so that's okay.
I went off your notes.
I've been called much worse. So
Yes.
that's all right.
So, as Executive Director of New Mexico Oil and Gas, we hear the governor talk about our outdoor recreational economy, and that's the future of New Mexico. So I just have a real simple question. What is oil in the future of New Mexico, or are we just moving away from oil and we're trying to get away from fossil fuels in general here in this state?
Certainly for the foreseeable future, oil and gas is going to continue to be a huge part of our state. So, I think who knows what the future will look like 50 years from now in terms of what the industrial composition of the state looks like. But certainly for the next few decades, oil and gas will still be our number one employer, largest source of revenue in the state.
Well, and during the campaign, it was one of the big topics of moving away from fracking. And as one of the Democratic candidates, I actually got booed at some of the events because let's just be realistic. If we're going to be in the oil and gas industry, it's fracking is just part of the drilling system. We just got to do it maybe better. But the question I have for you is, fracking is a major issue, a major topic within political worlds from both sides.
Absolutely.
I mean, when I talk to the oil and gas industry, when I talk to renewables, things like that, but within the fracking world, tell us a little bit about, what are you guys doing within the fracking world? Because there are some concerns on the fracking side of it.
Sure.
But in New Mexico, what's the industry doing to protect that?
Yeah, well, and first of all, thank you for asking and for giving me an opportunity to talk about it. Fracking is one of those words that, first of all, it's a horrible construction of a word.
Right.
It's got an F, a C, a K. I just wish
It does have the mnemonics.
I never thought of it that way. That's actually a good point.
It's
Yeah,
just
that's
such
actually
a
a good
terrible
point.
word in its fundamentals. But fracking as a word is people's, I feel like, brains break when you mention the word fracking. It provokes such emotion among certain portions of the state and of the country when you just talk about it, that it's oftentimes very difficult to kind of go beyond just simply saying the word and then talking about the process and what it is and what it is not.
And just so everybody clears, the fracking part, I try to explain to people, first of all, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
the Permian Basin now, we have the third largest oil reserves in the world. Is that correct?
We have the largest continuous oil and gas reserve in the world.
In the world, okay. So
In the Permian.
And what I try to explain to people, because I have friends that are petroleum engineers, but what I try to explain to people is, people think like we're Saudi Arabia, where you drill down and there's like this pool of oil and it just pops up. I try to explain we actually have to frack to get the oil out of the ground, out of the rock, out of the dirt. Correct?
Well,
Sure.
Well, and to touch on that real quick, back up just a bit and explain what is the myth behind fracking where people's head explode, and then maybe we can segue to what
Absolutely.
Jeff's talking about, because I don't think a lot of people understand what fracking is at its core.
Yeah, and thank you, and that's what I was trying to get at with about people's brains kind of breaking when they hear the word, because it was a word that if you talked to people about fracking 15 years ago, most people had never even heard the term before. And unfortunately, what's happened is that this term has been defined by people who are hostile to the oil and gas industry. And when you talk to a lot of people who know nothing else about the process, they hear fracking and they immediately say fracking contaminates water, because those are the images that they're constantly flooded with by groups who are very opposed to the industry. Now, fracking is hydraulic fracturing, and it refers to a short process while you're after you've drilled the well, when you're in the process of completing the well or getting the hydrocarbons to start flowing, where you create small fractures in the rock. Right. And so that's what it is. You're creating fractures in the rock to allow the hydrocarbons to flow into the well. And The process itself in New Mexico and all around the country has never, the process of hydraulic fracturing has never led to one single case of groundwater contamination. Now, I'm not going to say that, like any industry and any industrial process, I'm not saying that there aren't environmental impacts associated with anything we do.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that fracking is something that's done that doesn't have any potential impacts or risks. In fact, when we look at fracking, one of the biggest risks associated with fracking, and this was articulated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency under President Obama, when they looked at fracking and its relationship with drinking water resources. And they concluded that fracking itself does not have any impacts on drinking water. But when you're talking about the process where you're extracting, in addition to extracting oil, which is what, and gas, which is what we're drilling for, you're also bringing up a lot of other stuff from underground, including water that has a lot of different contaminants in it, very brackish, high amounts of salts in the water. And where you've seen environmental impacts associated with the drilling process are when you're extracting those fluids and you're trying to manage those waters at the surface. Yeah. That's where there have been issues where you've seen people, if they're not properly managing and disposing of those fluids, where you could have an environmental impact, absolutely. And what do? We take huge steps in New Mexico in order to manage every step of the process. There's also concerns around fracking with respect to seismicity and whether you're going to cause earthquakes. And unlike the groundwater contamination issue, this is an area where there has been documented instances in other states where we've had seismic occurrence or seismic activity linked to the process of hydraulic fracturing. And what we've done is we've learned from that process in order to, if you're properly assessing how you're managing both the fracking process as well as your disposal of fluids, then you can mitigate all the risks associated with the process.
And on that note, I've talked to petroleum engineers, I've talked to environmentalists, and again, Oklahoma.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of examples of where they've been fracking or drilling where maybe they shouldn't have because of fault lines and things like that. I've been told we don't have those type of issues here, or we just do it better. Because you tell me, I don't believe in New Mexico we have ever had an earthquake or any kind of issues like that.
I live here. I've never experienced an earthquake.
But no, but Oklahoma does, and and some of the petroleum engineers that I know say we should never be drilling in certain areas of Oklahoma because some of the plate matters, and that's creating some of those issues.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And in Oklahoma, there have been issues, and I think one of the things we've learned from Oklahoma is not only in terms of drilling, but also in terms of disposal. So, we're pulling hydrocarbons out of the ground, but we're also bringing a lot of water that it's not drinking water. This isn't what we would use for our household consumption here or for irrigation purposes. This is water that has huge amounts of salt that's thousands of feet below our aquifers. That produced water that's coming out, or brackish water that's coming out during the process, we're using it, and in New Mexico now more and more we're recycling and treating that water to reuse that as part of our drilling process. But then we will re-inject that water back into the formation where it was pulled from. And where you saw in Oklahoma was, if you're not careful about where you're actually locating those wells, either for drilling or for re-injecting water, then you absolutely could have issues. And so that's why we've been fortunate in New Mexico. We haven't had seismic occurrences. And seismic activity is something that is completely avoidable if you plan your process well.
Actually, give me one second. Between 2011 and 2017, they actually said methane emissions from oil and natural gas fell by 57% in the Permian Basin. Are you familiar with that statistic?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, that gets to a big issue, which is something that I think everybody has an interest in addressing, which is climate change. And as the leader of the oil and gas industry, you might fall off your chair thinking that we don't in any way, shape, or form disagree with the notion that climate change presents a risk, and we need to be helping identify solutions in order to move forward with the process. And that's where methane is a potent greenhouse gas, and that's where this starts to become a big part of conversation. Here, and those figures you cite are EPA statistics.
Right.
This isn't data that's been fudged by one side or someone paying an expert to connect the dots the way they want. This is reported emission levels according to the U.S.
Well, I want
EPA.
to go back real quick because I can see some people like listening, watching our show and saying, they didn't ask. So let's talk about the fracking water. The oil and gas industry, one of the big controversies they have is that you guys are taking fresh water, using it to drill, then you come back out. But more and more, and I think this technology, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this technology was developed here at Sandia or developed here. More and more I'm hearing that we're actually cleaning the water and separating the water and recycling the water.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that everybody understands that the oil and gas industry, you're actually the leaders in that technology and in that investment, or correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. And actually, this was a great piece of bipartisan legislation that was passed during the last legislative session, the Produced Water Act. Right. And had support from politicians on both sides of the aisle that, quite frankly, you never see them voting together on issues, especially an issue related to energy or the environment. And it enjoyed broad bipartisan support. And what that allowed was to take advantage of a lot of the intellectual capital that exists in the state. We are recycling and reusing a lot of the water that that's part of our process. In fact, though, stepping back, the oil and gas industry, in terms of water consumption, we're less than 2% of statewide water consumption a year. But again, I'm not suggesting that we're not recycling and reusing.
That's a big deal.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And when you say, Jeff mentioned the fresh water. So are we to say that you have to use up fresh water to get the brackish water out?
No, absolutely not. There's we're talking about two different formations separated by thousands and thousands of feet. And we've evolved in this area. This is not something that, 20 years ago, recycling and reuse was not a priority for the industry. Mm-hmm. But recognizing that this is important for, first and foremost, the sustainability of our planet as well as our industry, people have invested heavily in this technology.
I also want to make sure that we cover I want to make sure we cover one thing, because flaring, you brought up flaring. The environmentalist group, everything else, we got about a minute. Talk to us a little bit, because flaring, we can actually eliminate more and more flaring, and I think oil and gas has done that over the last few years. What are you guys doing on the flaring element of it? Because that's a major issue on the environmentalist side.
Yeah, well, that's why methane emissions, that statistic you talked about, we've seen major decreases in our greenhouse gas emissions, both in the Permian as well as in the San Juan Basin in northwestern New Mexico. And what's remarkable about that is those decreases have occurred at a time where production has been at historic record levels. Yeah. So we're producing more than ever before and emitting even less. What we're doing is we're taking advantage of best practices. We're replacing old equipment with more modern, innovative technology, and that allows us to capture and reuse and avoid flaring events as much as possible. One big issue, though, on flaring, just to make it clear, is there's a huge opportunity here to not only see major environmental benefits, but also economic development, because a big issue we have right now is making sure we have enough infrastructure in place in order to avoid having to flare excess gas.
Because we actually have the technology to actually separate it and recapture that. It's just we don't have that infrastructure there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's where there's a huge opportunity right now for additional pipeline, gas processing plants. We're talking billions of dollars of
economic growth for New Mexico.
And see,
infrastructure
what I'm
over the next
finding
5
is,
years.
in this conversation, is the problem is everybody puts on their old school hats. The anti-green energy people think, oh, well, solar back in the day wasn't very good. And the anti-fracking people think, well, fracking's horrible. And if the two could start listening to each other a bit more, the technology's come so far.
I think our segment's almost over. We're going to have to wrap it up. Once again, we're going to have a whole show on this topic, because we could go over. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
we'll be
you,
back
Ryan.
after
we
this.
Really appreciate
and
it.
we want to thank P&M, Indigo Mortgage, and Ryan So and VAC. We'll be back right after this.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
We are connected by rivers, by mountain ranges, by unique culture. But what connects us more than ever? Renewable energy from wind and solar. P&M delivers renewable energy every day to our homes, businesses, and institutions across the state.
And they are committed to 100% emissions-free energy by 2040.
After all, we call this home too. P&M, together for New Mexico.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 Brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. We've been talking about energy and oil, gas. We're going to hit renewables.
I'm. This show's no fun when we don't agree. When we agree on everything.
Well,
right now, we've agreed so far.
We haven't agreed on everything. Trust me, we haven't. We've just been letting the We've been
trying
to learn.
Our Facebook audience people see the more fun between commercials.
We'll put the controversial stuff after the guests leave. Because I don't think.
Wait, is that new? Is that new for you?
No.
You didn't do that a couple episodes ago.
Kelly, joining us now is Kelly Huber, Senior Manager of Corporate Communications for P&M, one of our show sponsors. We're humbled, blessed, and honored to have you here today.
And we're not going to let you off easy just because you're a company sponsoring this event.
No.
Our TV show.
So I wanted to come out of the gate and just ask you, the goal of P&M is emissions-free.
Correct.
They are shutting down the big coal plant. How can P&M go emissions-free, and why is the coal-fired plant such a big part of that initiative?
Well, I think both of those things could be said separately.
Okay.
We were already down the path to get out of San Juan generating station, out of the coal plant. In 2017, we did an integrated resource plan, and what it showed was that the coal is uneconomical. And this is not unique to New Mexico. It's not unique to P&M. It is seen nationwide. I recently came from Arizona, and they're going through the same process of closing down some of the coal plants.
Yeah.
So we're down that path, and then this year in April, our CEO announced we're headed to 100% emissions-free by 2040, and we think it's very important to take that step. Now, we will be out of coal, so we'll be out of San Juan in 2022, and out of the Four Corners. Our contract ends, I believe, 2031. So P&M will be a coal-free company by 2030 run, and then we'll move toward the emissions-free to 2040.
Well, it's funny, when I was up there visiting with, people up in the San Juan area, there was mothers coming to me saying, are you going to put our kids out of work? And I was like, I'm not putting your kids out of work. Coal is just going away.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. I mean, there's only like 3 coal plants in the country, I think. And so I think P&M's doing a smart thing, kind of moving that direction. I believe that. But
China actually, believe it or not, China made this move. China is supposed to be coal-free by 2025.
I think that's what I'm saying is I think the industry is. I think coal's going away.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you another question, because there's a lot of different streams. Obviously, we just had the executive director of oil and gas. I'm a big proponent of natural gas. I think it burns clean. I think it's cheap. We have an abundance of it, create tons of jobs and revenue. Tell us about your guys' position with the natural gas, and what are you guys doing? Because obviously, up in the San Juan Basin, natural gas is huge for that community.
I will, on getting out of San Juan, you're absolutely right, if I can touch on that. This decision, this move out of coal is an economic one. We provide affordable, one of the lowest rates in New Mexico for electric utilities, and it affects real people. You're right, it affects the moms, it affects our employees and our coal miners, and we take that to heart. And so we're doing what we can to make sure that we have severance, we have job training, and there's a lot of things that we're working on with that. In terms of natural gas, what we did when we said, okay, we're going to file for San Juan for our abandonment, which means that we're going to close the plant, we presented to our regulators 4 options to replace the coal-fired generating station. And that was so people could get involved and people could talk about it. They can see the pros and cons of these different scenarios. And in one of the scenarios, the one that P&M ultimately proposes, it includes natural gas. We see that in our portfolio at least until 2040. So all the financial parts of it end in 18 years in 2040 when the coal plant, I can do math, when the coal plant ends. But there's always technologies that could come around that reduce emissions from natural gas, and so we're going to be open and learn as we go through the next couple decades.
So wait, you said 4 options. One was natural gas.
Yep, the first one is a hybrid plant, actually. It includes a combination of natural gas.
A hybrid plant.
Yep.
Okay.
Natural gas, solar, wind, battery storage. And within that plan, all of the natural gas would be located in San Juan County. And so the second option would have all of the replacement resources in San Juan County. And what you see there is you see good reliability, which is what we stand behind, but you'll see an increased cost to customers. I believe it was $54 million over the life of the plan as compared to the first one.
Okay, hold on. So when you say replacement resources, we're talking about wind, I assume, solar,
Yes, sir.
but non-natural gas in that scenario? That's why the cost goes
No,
up?
natural gas would be included there. With that, and so would battery storage.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is battery storage, because with renewables, and I'm a favor of renewables, I think we should be investing into all avenues in the state of New Mexico, because I think we're a perfect storm for all 3 elements. But the number one issue right now is battery storage, because you can do all the wind, you can do all the solar in the world, which I'm in favor, but at nighttime, if you're not storing that energy, how is that? Because I know here at the University of New Mexico and at Kirtland and Sandia, we're developing some of that stuff, researching some of that. How is that coming along? Because that's the number one thing I hear from viewers or from people, the battery storage is an issue.
Yeah, it is. So what we see and what we proposed is about 40 megawatts now of battery storage. The problem is if you put all the battery storage on there now, costs are higher than what we project they would be even in a decade. So if you wait a decade and you put battery storage on the system thoughtfully, we anticipate costs to be down and the technology and capacity of the battery storage to be better. And so it's really looking at the long game and making sure it is a critical part of us being emissions free, very important, but we have to do it thoughtfully and meticulously.
And so I just kind of going back again, I had natural gas in a hybrid plant. And then we had replacement resources, including battery storage in the hybrid plant. Kind of the 1 and 2 feel kind of similar to me. What was 3 and 4?
The unique part about number 2 is it would all be located in San Juan County.
Okay, so
That's
it's a
the price
complete
difference.
Okay, there you go. Okay, and then 3 and 4?
Option 3, we would have renewables and battery combined. So we would say all we're going to replace that coal generation with is going to be renewable batteries. And option 4 is, I might have 3 and 4 mixed up, but another option was all renewables, no battery. And what we found in those last 2 options is that reliability is at risk. When it's all renewables and no battery storage, reliability is more than at risk. It doesn't meet the federal requirements that we have to make.
Let me ask you guys, as P&M, as a looking at, your guys, I get it. Your guys' job is to basically create low-cost energy for New Mexicans. I get that. But when you start looking at natural gas, you start looking at our resources, wind, solar, things like that, we literally could generate more electricity than our consumers can use. Are you guys looking long-term on, I talked about exporting our energy outside the state. We can now generate between 2 to 3 to 7 cents a kilowatt. And I know for a fact in California and Nevada, in high demand states, high demand months, they're buying wholesale 18 to 32 cents a kilowatt. So to me, it's a revenue stream for P&M, it's a revenue stream for our state. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that some of the game plan that you guys are looking at down the road?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and you'll see that in some of our transmission line filings, that we're trying to increase our ability to provide power to the West. We are joining the Western Energy Imbalance Market, and that's a real-time energy market that will help us do just that. And so we're already in the midst of planning and preparing. It requires a lot of system updates internally, so you can't just flip a switch and sign a contract and be there. But we're working on it in the next few years. We should be part of that market. So we've already signed.
And right now, Eric, if you don't know this, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, 7 or 8 states from the north come through our grid. Our grid goes all the way up to California. So there's like 14 states that literally connect through New Mexico and run right through New Mexico. So between between all our energies, between natural gas, wind, and solar, there's a huge opportunity for New Mexico to not only create lower costs for us, but to export it for other industries, for other states.
Yeah, but so my big question is, who's going to pay for all the infrastructure to get this up? It's going to be the consumer, right?
Well, under my plan, if I'd have wanted, it would have been the state of New Mexico.
Well, let's hear more more about your plan.
With the partnership, your CEO, Pat, we talked about this.
Yeah.
I said, we will invest with you. So let's have the private sector invest a third, the state will invest a third, but I want some of the revenue. Have the state generate some of the revenue. It's time our state, we sit on $24 billion in our state investment funds. It's time we start investing some of that here in New Mexico. That's not a political speech, by the way.
It sounds very politicized.
No, that was just part of the plan.
See, I'm trying to, look, at the end of the day, I always kind of put my common sense hat on, and I say to myself, when you talk about these hybrid plants and you talk about reliability issues and you talk about battery storage, and like, who always eats the cost of that? It's the consumer. Like, I don't remember any time as we were moving away from these, my energy bill going down. Now, I'm fortunate because I afforded solar on my house. What's PNM's view? And I fought PNM a lot because I wanted to put a bigger system on my house than I needed so I could sell back my energy, and it seemed like it was pushed back the whole way. What's PNM's feeling on the individual consumer wanting to up the ante and sell back their electricity to PNM?
You know, that is a complicated topic, and I'm not the right person to answer that question, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I can definitely talk about partnerships in solar and the bigger community aspect, but when it comes to the personal solar, it's net metering.
Yeah.
When I was in Arizona, it was a big topic there as well for the utility I worked for there.
Because to me, that seems like the fiscal incentive we're talking about in terms of getting more infrastructure, that you incentivize the homeowner to be part of the game,
Well, I think that's the long-term plan, is that let's invest together, because I think our state, our cities, the private industry, they're literally.
It always comes back to the profit.
No, but again, it's time our state profits with the private sector. That's what we have to do. Other states have done that, and that's what we have to start taking a look at.
Do you feel like if I were living in the San Juan and I said to myself, PNM's against oil, gas, coal, what would you say to a person, sitting there in San Juan going, my kid's gonna be out of job, and PNM's against oil, gas, and coal?
That would be a hard conversation because we respect that and we realize what's happening.
But at the same time, PNM and the state and our legislators have lobbied, and they've actually come up with funding for training and for job program and job training for the coal people that are going to be losing their jobs to Let me tell you, people aren't in coal right now using picks and knives. They're high technology.
So what would the conversation come from the PNM side to that?
Well, I think what we've said before is our step out of coal is not a step out of the communities we've been a part of. We have been afforded reliable energy from San Juan for decades, affordable energy from San Juan for decades, and we respect them. We respect the people that are up there. This is the path we're going into, a zero emissions future for New Mexico and for the state to help. We believe that that's going to help economic development in the long run and will bring more businesses to the state and hopefully maybe more businesses to the San Juan region. We realize it's a hardship, but through the Energy Transition Act, I think is what you're referencing,
Kelly,
there's funds for that.
We're going to have to go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
High five. That's my first on-air high five there.
Facebook, stay tuned with us, and we'll be back right after these moments, or rather this message.
We are connected by rivers, by mountain ranges, by unique culture. But what connects us more than ever? Renewable energy from wind and solar. PNM delivers renewable energy every day to our homes, businesses, and institutions across the state.
And they are committed to 100% emissions-free energy by 2040.
After all, we call this home too. PNM, together for New Mexico.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. What a great show so far. We've been
and
talking
we're not
about,
arguing.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
No, I don't know if it's good or bad. I can't decide.
You know what? It's good for New Mexico. It's probably bad TV. How's that?
Don't worry, we'll disagree plenty in the last segment. In the last segment, I'm actually shocked you may actually, breaking news, you may criticize Obama. Wait, hold on. Okay. I wouldn't do that, Strauss.
Right.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Over. Right, then that we're supposed to do instead of talking stuff over. Yes. Wait a minute, I have criticized the Obama administration on many things, and the minute I criticize the Trump administration, you go, you lefty liberal guy.
Oh, stop.
You know that.
Because you fall. Anyways, we'll talk about that one.
Oh, because I joining us
now.
Media.
Joining us now is David Griscom.
Welcome,
Director of Solar PV Project Develop New Mexico. Pure New Energy is your company, and you're going to take us on this journey of where we're headed in renewable energy and how your company actually started in England, you said, or Germany.
Right.
And so, and where we're at here.
Sure. Yeah, so PNE is, we're German-based. We've been around for decades. We put in the first offshore wind farm many years ago. We have over 3,000 megawatts of wind and solar installed throughout the world. Most of it's in Europe, but we're diversified in the United States, in Canada, and South Africa, and other parts of the world. Here in the United States, we've got about 1,000 megawatts in the pipeline. We started a U.S. subsidiary probably 10 years ago, 11 years ago, in 2008, based out of Chicago. And recently, in the last 6 months, started operations here in New Mexico. I'm based out of New Mexico. I'm based out of Santa Fe. Our CEO of the company is based out of Santa Fe. So we have a strong New Mexico presence. In New Mexico, we're developing a 78 megawatt wind farm. And we're also very active in the utility scale and community scale solar environment.
So what is better, wind farm or solar, or is it inextricably linked?
There's no better in that scenario, and oftentimes you'll see projects pairing the two energy sources to sort of firm up the energy, but they're very different profiles, obviously. You get your energy from the sun throughout the day. The wind is a little more variable, but oftentimes you have that at nighttime, and so it's actually a nice pairing of the two energy sources.
And we've always kind of looked at, I tried to find a map. I know I've seen it. I was trying to find a map of the wind shifts from California all the way basically through Arizona, hits southern New Mexico, and then takes up to the east side. So everything we've always heard or read, New Mexico is like the #2 state in the country for renewables because we have more sun than everything else. And then right about 5 o'clock to 5 in the morning, from 5 in the afternoon, 5 in the morning, we have wind pretty consistent on the east side of the state.
Correct.
Where are you guys looking at these wind farms? Is it the east side of the state? Is that where you're looking at mostly?
The commercial grade wind, the really high quality wind is kind of concentrated in central, northeast, and east part of New Mexico.
The state, yeah.
In the northeast in particular, that's where our wind farm is, near Gladstone. We have an excellent wind resource. You'll find pockets of wind throughout the northeast and the east that are exceptional wind. So the challenge for us is we have the high quality wind, we have the quality sun. The challenge for us is to figure out an infrastructure to get that out of the state into where the demand is, California, Arizona,
and
Nevada.
That's one thing in doing my homework for this show. The issue is those long transmission lines, because with coal or plants, you can put them close to cities, shorter transmission lines. Clearly, wind has to be out in the boondocks, because if there's buildings all around, you ain't gonna get the wind, right? So how are you dealing with those transmission lines and the length and the degradation over distance?
Well, there are various transmission projects being developed in New Mexico, SunZia, Western Spirit, all designed to capture the wind where the wind is produced and transport it to the load centers in Albuquerque, Phoenix, LA, San Diego, and whatnot. There's different types of transmission infrastructure, DC versus AC. DC, you have less losses to your question. You have less line losses. But that's definitely a shortcoming in the state of New Mexico is we need more transmission. That being said, there's still plenty of renewables to be developed in the state, not shipped out of state, but to provide for in-state load. And that's where the solar comes in.
So right now, everything you guys are developing is for in-state load, as you call it, in-state load. You're doing nothing to look at transmitting outside the state.
Our Gladstone project, 78 megawatts, could very easily end up going out of state. We're not sure yet, but if there was an opportunity to provide that in-state, we absolutely would.
And again, again, the theory is from the state side is we have lease, we lease out land, we have lease programs with oil and gas. We should be looking at investing into renewables. We sit on $24 billion on our investment funds. Let's invest with the private sector. Let's invest together. Bring P&M to the table. That's what I've always talked about. They control, they're the experts in transmitting this stuff. Let's all work together to create a plan that we all benefit from. We could lower our costs in the state of New Mexico, clearly, but then we could also sell our energy to Arizona, to other states at a higher price to make new revenue streams.
Well, one of the things that I get nervous about, and this is again, we build a wind farm and then we figure out how to get it where it needs to go. It seems like backward logic to me. Can you explain why we're not building the infrastructure and then building the wind farm?
The time horizon to build infrastructure, transmission lines in particular, is much longer than the time horizon to build either a wind farm or a solar farm.
Yeah, because you can pop those up
Yeah,
readily.
and SunZia has been in the works for 8, 9, 10 years. So that's been planned for forever.
But SunZia is not moving forward, not because it's taking so long to plan. It's moving forward because they're fighting over what land.
Moving forward. Is
exactly. They're fighting over which direction they're going to go.
Yeah.
Are we going to go through White Sands? Are we going to go through federal land, state land? So it's doable, but bureaucracy gets in the way.
Right. Yeah. And bear in mind that transmission is not the only challenge that we have. We can easily provide New Mexico with renewable energy, green electrons, and avoid the transmission discussion, not entirely, but avoid most of the transmission discussion by strategically siting solar farms and strategically siting wind farms near appropriate substations and appropriate transmission lines that are close to the load.
That's the issue, right? Like, to me, just in, I always try to, like I say, I always try to ground the plane a bit in my mind. It seems like, so I'll just ask you a simple question. Can wind and solar produce as much energy as a coal-fired plant?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And in fact, we're seeing hundreds of megawatts of wind queued up in New Mexico right now. I think the total load in New Mexico is, P&M's load is close to 3,000 megawatts. We can easily bring on more than 3,000 megawatts of wind in New Mexico.
Hey, the spring, man, we'll be making enough. We're making enough energy
Particularly
in the spring, man. We could. I'm tired. We could power Texas and New Mexico together.
But in doing so, you have to again get it to where it needs to go.
You have to have the will to invest and look down the 20. That's why I've been saying all along, oil and gas, natural gas, wind and solar can all live together. Correct me if I'm wrong. The #1 investment group in Texas right now, oil and gas. Oil and gas is actually investing into wind farms. They're investing in renewables. Before Ryan left, Executive Director of Oil and Gas, they're looking at renewables within their drilling
and
areas.
There's a reason for that. The price, let's just take solar to start with. The price of solar has come down 70% in the last 5 years. You're now seeing solar being cost competitive with coal, cheaper than coal at times. You're now seeing utilities.
By the way, that was because of Obama. By the way,
you're now seeing utilities build utility scale solar plants instead of building new natural gas plants because it's actually cheaper.
Right.
Solar is now.
What do you think is driving? So when you say that, what's driving down? Why was there a 70% price of reduction?
A number of things.
Because I want somebody out there listening to understand it.
China, Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, India, they're producing modules at prices we've never seen before, historic low prices. The prices of modules has come way, way down. RPSs, Renewable Portfolio Standards, the mandates to require utilities to purchase these systems. And I'll put a plug in for independent power producers, by the way. We want to own the system. We're a market-based solution to utilities. We don't want utilities to own these solar farms. We want to build them and then sell the power to the utilities, and we have a right to do that. And so we're encouraging everyone in New Mexico to consider that independent power producers like us should be able to own the system after we've built it.
Now let me ask you a question though. If PNM came to the table and the state came to the table and said, let's work together and share the resources to build the infrastructure, would you guys be open to that? 100%. Or you want to, so that's my point is sometimes when it becomes us against them, let's bring everybody to the table, maybe on our show.
Let's meet in the middle.
Let's meet in the middle and figure it out.
Well, and it all begins with the profit motive though. And that's the thing. They're not going to come, people aren't going to come.
But costs have gone down so much, the profit, look, I want our state to make money based off it. PNM should make money based off it. Utility companies should make based off it. Renewable, solar wind companies should make money off it.
And let me add one other thing. We're able to capture the investment tax credit, the federal this is a major policy by the federal government back in 2005, 2006 that allowed for a 30% tax credit for businesses and residences to capture on their income tax. We're able to fully monetize that investment tax credit. And so we pass that cost on to our customers, our utilities, whoever we're selling the power to. And so
the cost or the savings? Is that what you?
The savings.
The savings, because you said cost, and I'm like, if you're passing the cost on, that's not.
And who benefits is the ratepayer.
Yeah.
So we could fully capture that. That's going to be ramped down on January 1st of 2020 from 30% down to 26%, and then down to 22% on January 1st, 2021. So we have to fully capture as much as we can as long as we have this investment tax credit.
So are you saying without the investment tax credit, the cost would go?
I'm saying that it's been a major driver in the industry along with the declining module prices.
Why did you go there? Why did you go there? You got a tax credit, you got a tax benefit.
Oh, yeah.
It lowered the cost. It incentivized you to do it.
But that's part of my point is it was all the profit motive for me. I'm not going to do it. I'm not all philanthropic about it. And if we got more common sense conversation around it, wind farms are going to have impacts on wind channels, migration of birds, and to sit there and pretend that it's not is going to be ridiculous. Right. Let's just have some common sense conversation and say things are going to be impacted, but ultimately it's going to produce cheaper and cleaner energy.
Thank you so much for coming on. We'll put your website on so we see where you guys are.
Thank you, David.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 Brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
We are connected by rivers, by mountain ranges, by unique culture. But what connects us more than ever? Renewable energy from wind and solar. P&M delivers renewable energy every day to our homes, businesses, and institutions across the state.
And they are committed to 100% emissions-free energy by 2040.
After all, we call this home too. P&M, together for New Mexico.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle.
And at the commercial, he just reneged on my breakfast he owes me.
And you're not following the script again. So there you go.
I'm just telling you.
So we have been talking about oil and gas today. We want to thank our sponsors one more time. P&M.
Yep.
Ryan Solenvac, and if you mention Meet in the Middle, by the way, I've got to get to this.
Oh, okay.
If you mention Meet in the Middle, you're going to get a minimum of a 10% discount on your order. So get in there, mention Jeff or Eric or Meet in the Middle, and ask Ryan to give you a bigger discount. I would bet he'll give you a bigger discount, but I'm only going to throw out there 10% just because that's who I am.
Indigo Mortgage does great
Indigo
mortgages. And some of our viewers, thank you so much. Ben told me that he's gotten some mortgage, some loans from us.
Please
so
support the people that
but hey,
support
today
the
we're
show,
talking,
and we want to thank them.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But you know, we really look. We disagree on some things. We agree on many things. I think today's topic, we thought it was important because it's always in the press. Some of my people in my
San
party.
Juan station has been in the press.
It's been in the press, and I try to explain to people. PNM is not shutting down coal. Coal is just going away. I mean, China is moving away from coal. Renewables is an opportunity. Natural gas is a clean burning opportunity. So again, we have to take a look at our opportunities. Now, on the campaign trail, you and I have talked about this.
I'm surprised at the confidence that Ryan, the PNE answered with that. David, the PNE guy answered with that wind and solar can produce more than a coal-fired plant.
Yeah, because we have, there 22 days.
I mean, it's the old
think
school.
about this.
The old school in me doesn't.
Think about this. 22 days, 22 hours out of the day in New Mexico, we can generate energy with wind or solar. And then we have natural gas that literally runs right through our state, and then oil and gas. And I get some of my friends that say, Jeff, we have to go away from fracking. I think Ryan proved today, and I've said this all along, on the campaign trail, I literally got booed because I said we're not going away from fracking. We know the oil and gas industry is doing a better job.
Do people understand that we drive cars? That to build a solar plant,
well, do people understand? But people understand that 42% of our economy is oil and gas. That's our industry.
Exactly. And to build a solar farm, to build a wind farm, what do you need? You need heavy machinery that runs on oil and gas. See, but
and even Ryan,
if we could just have some more common sense conversation around that.
And I think even would have even been a better today was if we got them all around a table that talked at the same time, because one of the things PNM talked about, we're ready to work with everybody. The renewable energy guys, wind and solar, let's work together. I mean, I'm telling you.
It sounds like everybody was open to that idea.
The federal government has grants. The state of New Mexico can easily invest, and I challenge our governor and our legislators. We have $24 billion in our investment funds. We can literally invest those into renewable energies. We're going to have $1 billion from oil and gas. We can invest with PNM and the renewables into an infrastructure to generate lower energy, and I've always said we have to think big. Let's build an infrastructure, create that energy, sell it to California, to Arizona, to those other states that need it.
But this is where I get skeptical of the government, because it's always, let's pass it and then read what's in it. You can keep your doctor, and it's always these initiatives. But let me.
You go back to the Obamacare thing. Keep your doctor thing.
No, hold on. Let me finish my thought, because I was trying to finish my thought, and now you just distracted me off my thought. So the skepticism is, let's do it and then build the infrastructure. And this always drives me nuts. It's like, get the plan together, get the infrastructure together, and then start building the wind farms. But we do it in backwards, and then we'll have to move it down the road or move it to the generating station.
And look, that's another problem with some of our political leaders that I talk to them about is, look.
It's lack of vision is what it is.
You have to look at this. You have to look at this as a 20, 30, 40-year investment. And unfortunately, sometimes they turn around and look at investments for the next election.
And then instead of feeding people
but David talked about SunZia. SunZia has had a long-term plan. It's been 10 years in development.
It's been bogged down in red tape.
It's been bogged down in red tape.
I got that from him too. But here's the thing too. It's like, just be common sense about it. Like, tell people we're not getting away from oil and gas anytime soon. It's not a reality. It's not going to happen. Everything you see around you is petroleum-based.
Right.
Like, let's quit the conversation of we can get away from oil and gas production, and let's start saying, okay, oil and gas production actually led to a 99% decrease in vehicle emissions, because you know why? They produce better gas.
But here's another thing, is with oil and gas and the development with our labs here, we've actually New Mexico's created a better water recycling system that we can literally use.
Be a model for the nation.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is oil and gas,
not going anywhere.
The number one investors within cleaning water, the number one investor in Texas at least, in basically renewables is the oil and gas industry. They see a great opportunity for that, and that's what they're working on. Now, we talked about real quick, Obama. The reason I was upset about Obama is because there are 8 solar companies here in New Mexico. When Obama allowed China and Asia flood our markets, that did lower costs 70%. It benefited.
Can I just tell you,
it benefited consumers.
Obama didn't stand up to anybody.
It flooded our market. It helped the consumers, but it put 8 businesses out of 8 New Mexico businesses.
And the problem is, New Mexico businesses, you've got to be sprightly. You got to do the job better at cheaper rates, and how you do that is called being brisk on your feet.
Well, in the 80s, we've talked about it. So we'll be back right after this message.
We are connected by rivers, by mountain ranges, by unique culture, But what connects us more than ever? Renewable energy from wind and solar. P&M delivers renewable energy every day to our homes, businesses, and institutions across the state.
And they are committed to 100% emissions-free energy by 2040.
After all, we call this home too. P&M, together for New Mexico.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. We've been talking about oil, gas production, renewable energy. This has been a dynamic and nimble show, I will say that.
And this is a topic that I hope you watch today's show. And on Facebook, I hope you're interacting. Some great questions today.
Yeah, thank you on Facebook.
We'll try and get to some of them as much as possible. But today's show, not like you said, I think that's a good point. It's not always going to be controversial. There may not always be a right or left side. There's always going to be people that are going to be against fracking, against flaring.
You're going to get sold down the river more than I am because my side is for fracking anyways.
But I agree with that. But I do think Democrats and independents and moderates, there's a majority of us, we understand it's 42% of our economy.
$12.8 billion since 2018 added to the economy of New Mexico because of fracking.
$7.8 billion of state coffers every year. $1 billion.
How on earth does the left think oil and gas is going away in New Mexico?
And that's what I'm saying. We have to kind of invest together and start talking about that and working together. So I think today's show, more than anything else, I hope, informed our audience about different areas.
Where we're in the middle on is bringing people together from all sides, oil and gas, solar, wind, and bringing them to the table.
If our audience could have seen them between commercial breaks talking to each other, they're all talking about how we can work together.
Everybody walked out of here saying, I'd go to the table on that.
Right, let's go work together. So I'm challenging our audience to reach out to your political leaders, to reach out to our governor, and let's get everybody at the table and sit down. Maybe our show is a catalyst to get you kind of there.
Hopefully. It doesn't always have to be controversial. Really,
no, not at all.
Catalyst for change, see?
Anyway, but thanks for tuning in today. Next week, Chivalry, is it dead?
Yeah,
live?
I don't know.
I
think it's alive. In the interim, go out and make a difference in the world.
Hey, New Mexico, never give up and just always find a way. God bless you guys.
God bless.
Find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle, or you can email us at meetinthemiddlenm@gmail.com. This is a production of the Sun Broadcasting Network.